And typically I would use popsicle sticks that you can also buy on Amazon to and kind of just shake it a little bit as I'm bringing it up. And you want to scrape the back carefully. You don't want to take off too much like I did. So if you do that, dragging the tip of the piping bag along the chocolate, because then that gets messy, it ruins the lines a bit. Hi everyone, welcome back to Smiles and a Bite. Today I'm gonna walk you through how to decorate Halloween Cakesicles. I'll even show you a little bit about how I prep mine and how to get them to not fall off the stick and not be complete disasters, because I have had some real disasters. I'm gonna start with already cold cake pop dough. This is left over. The way I like to make my cake pop dough is I bake my cake. Immediately I take it out of the oven, cover it with saran wrap, and let the steam, and just trap the steam inside. And that really helps trap in all the moisture. And once the pan is cool enough to touch and hold, I throw the cake into my mixer and let it keep going until it reaches a Play-Doh consistency. So it'll hold its shape really well. Another thing that I like to do is I actually like to make it ahead, store it and freeze it, and then thaw it, and I feel that gives me the best texture. So I'm gonna start with these molds, these Cakesicle molds that I bought off of Amazon. They're relatively cheap. I know certain cake supply stores have started to sell them. I don't know about all of them, or even major chain stores. I bought mine off of Amazon. They're meant for popsicles, but people started using them for Cakesicles. And Cakesicles are, I think, a better way of doing cake pops. It's really tough to get the perfect circle without a ton of practice, or the perfect round ball. So if you're going to do a cake pop, you want to scoop out your amount and just squeeze it in your hand, and you're releasing all of the air that's trapped inside. And you just roll it in your hand, and you want to be gentle. You don't want to apply a crazy amount of pressure, because then you can crack it. See, now it's not a perfect sphere. That takes time. So I'd much rather do Cakesicles. They're also a little bit bigger. You get a little bit more actual cake, and then you have more room to decorate. So I prefer Cakesicles. So I just take my dough, and I'm just going to squeeze it into the mold. And typically I would use popsicle sticks that you can also buy on Amazon to make these, but I ran out, so I'm just going to use the classic lollipop stick. Nothing wrong with it. It'll still work, just a little bit of a different look. And because I'm starting with this cold, I don't really have to throw it in the freezer like I normally would. Usually I do mold the dough, pop it in the freezer for maybe 10 minutes, just so that it'll set and firm up and will really hold its shape. But since I'm starting with it cold, I don't have to do that, and I don't really have to worry about it. So what I did, and I found this trick off of TikTok, normally this is closed. You just take a pair of scissors and cut through the hole for the popsicle stick, and instead of having to lift and push up, you can just lift it up because of the hole, and it makes things a lot easier. So the more you learn. With my white chocolate, I've already melted it down. It's to a nice, really smooth, runny consistency. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my cake pop, Cakesicle, whatever you want to call it, dip it in at an angle, and kind of just shake it a little bit as I'm bringing it up. And you want to scrape the back carefully. You don't want to take off too much like I did. So if you do that, grab your spatula and just brush it on to cover. Because you don't want your cake to be exposed, because that will dry it out. Or even the oil from the cake can start seeping out, and you don't want to see that because it's just not pretty. So that just has to set a little bit. But what you're going to need is some piping bags, or I like to use disposable piping bags. A lot of people say that you can use Ziploc bags. I've never had a good experience with them. They always pop on me. Maybe I overfill them. I don't know. They just don't like me, and I don't like them. But if they work for you, that's great. Or disposable piping bags are really cheap on Amazon. I usually buy a pack of 100 for $10. I don't remember the exact numbers. I'm buying them all the time. I always have them on hand. That, and I rarely have these bags pop on me, just because they're a bit thicker. They're meant to hold buttercream, royal icing, things like that. So I'm just gonna cut some of my white chocolate into my bag. I'm just gonna prep my bag for now. I really don't need that much because I'm only decorating one cake pop at a time, but having a little bit more than just a small amount makes it easier to hold. So a small trick, if you don't know how to properly fill a piping bag, you can take a cup and place the bag inside. Hold the bag over the cup, and take your chocolate and pour it in like that. But because I am used to just using my hand and I do it so often, I don't need to use a cup. But for those that don't know or aren't comfortable with putting the bag over their hand, you can do that. So they haven't quite set. I would say chocolate usually takes about around 5-10 minutes to set, to properly set, so you can start decorating over it and not have the colors bleed into each other. What you can do is you can put them in the fridge and it'll make the process a lot faster. Though if you do that, you do run the risk of your chocolate cracking from the cold. So I just like to leave it on the counter, clean up the mess as I go, and then by the time I come back, my chocolate is ready for me to work with. Okay. So here's that. I didn't tap off enough on the side so you see the little bit of a pool, but that's something that you can clean up with a knife, an X-Acto knife. You can scrape it off with a butter knife or a spoon. So it's little things like that that can be fixed. But for this particular design, it's okay because it's supposed to be a mummy. And again, this isn't for an order. I can get away with certain things as I do them. So I just cut off a really small tip the tip of my piping bag, and I'm just gonna pipe two dots. For my mummy's eyes, I'm gonna let that set, because what I'm gonna do for the mummy design, I don't want the colors to overlap, is you wanna hold it just straight above, light pressure, and the chocolate, because it is melted and it is runny, it'll go itself. At a certain point, you stop applying pressure and then just twist around so you don't get stuck with a small peak on the chocolate, and it'll just be a nice smooth top. Or if you do get one, something you can do is just take it and lightly tap it down, and that'll help the chocolate to settle. Or if you don't mind getting messy, you can take your finger and just lightly manipulate it. Just do a little twist, something to just get rid of the peak. It's not a big deal, but for people that really care about the minor details, it's just something you look out for, something you watch for. And you can tell if your chocolate is set or not just by looking at it. It'll be really shiny, so you can tell that this is not set at all. And just lightly lift it, and it's not moving at all, so it's stuck on there. It's not set, it's not ready, so that needs a little bit more time. And so does the black one. It's really shiny around the edges. It'll start to get a bit matte, but ultimately chocolate or candy coating, if it's properly tempered, if it's at the right temperature, it'll stay shiny, but it won't look wet, if that makes sense. Don't think that makes sense, but it makes sense in my head. I can tell that the top, whatever I'm doing, I can, on the surface of the cake pop, the top, I can work on that. And since I'm just piping the face, it's easier to work with it on the flat surface rather than holding it, because then you run the risk of messing up, dropping it, or shaking, and you ruin the drizzle or whatever it is you're doing. So what I'm gonna do is, the orange one is gonna be like a pumpkin, so I'm gonna pipe a jack-o'-lantern face. And what you do is you're going to just apply light pressure, let it fall, and then don't touch back down until the end. So you lightly touch where you want it to start, lift and pull, and then drop down, lift and pull. And that'll help you get really nice lines, and then put a little dollop on the top and fill it. And to fill the chocolate, you can use a toothpick to manipulate the chocolate, move it around, and fill it in that way. Or you can do what I just did and just with the tip of the bag kind of shake the top of it. Now I'm not really squeezing the bag. I don't need to. The chocolate really does all the work. I'm just making sure it stays in the spaces that I want it to. And I'm really just guiding the bag. So I'm going to do the smile, and I like to start with the bottom of it. And again, I'm just tapping and pulling. And I'm not dragging the tip of the piping bag along the chocolate, because then that gets messy, it ruins the lines a bit. So I'm just agitating the chocolate and moving it around with the piping bag itself. I'm not applying pressure, I'm not adding more chocolate in, it's just adding that little drop and then agitating it and moving it around. Usually you just work with whatever you have. So the eyes on my mummy have set. And for this, I don't need a piping bag. I just need my silicone spatula. What is this called? This thing. I forgot what it's called. This thing. You can do it with a piping bag, but there's no need for the waste. So you just take your, whatever this thing is called, and dip it into the chocolate. And you want to just scoop up a bit and let it form that triangle. And just take your cake pop and drag it across and make your lines. I like for my mummies to have thicker lines, so I really watch it. And this is something I actually learned at Disneyland while I was working at Disneyland. And this is how they decorate some of their marshmallow treats. It's super easy. You just take a little bit of time to get used to the motion of it. But it's simple. You don't need anything special. You don't have to go buy something specific most people usually have. It doesn't take anything special. Most things you can find in store, online, and it's something you can do and enjoy. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. I hope you learned something, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye!